How do we turn this into $25,000 a month?
We start an OnlyFans.
What were Pistons OnlyFans, right?
Yeah. Oh, that's recording. Okay, actually, I'll take that back.
Wait. Oh, we are live.
Y'all got caught.
I take back everything I said.
You want to make $25,000.
Oh man, but look. We are one day away from this draft. I can't wait for tomorrow night. We can get in here and get this draft coverage started. I'm trying to get our table talk crew in here. We're gonna have the legend Terry Foster. Obviously, Jeff and I we're gonna be on the desk, and we're gonna have some guests that hopefully get the opportunity and the time to call in and be able to share their perspective on this draft. But Troy had a lot to say. We got a chance to talk about it on the Morning Woodward show. Dropped a lot of different nuggets. Mike Curtis referred to it as breadcrumbs in terms of, look, we're gonna get an opportunity to see what this team, is going to do based on the things that Troy Weaver has already stated. But how are you feeling, man? Like ahead of the draft, you confident? Are you pumped up? Do you feel like you have a grasp on what's going to happen in this draft?
I feel like you can never have a grasp on what Troy Weaver's going to do. I think we've learned that. D-Mac, shout out to D-Mac. He's always looking stylish. We never fully have a grasp on what Troy Weaver's going to do. So to say I think I do would be incorrect. But the fact that he gave out the little nuggets he gave out, the one thing that stood out to me, the biggest quote of the entire press conference is, I'm not satisfied with bunting. I'm going for the long ball. I'm going for the big swings. And that's something with Troy Weaver. And we've had this conversation now about the draft for like months now, about players, fit versus BPA, best player available versus fit. And some would argue that my pick of Taylor Hendricks is settling for fit, which, okay, fair. Troy Weaver pretty much just punched a hole or kicked the door down with that conversation. And I think we all kind of know now where Troy's head at. And he understands, listen, we won 17 games. We had the worst record in the NBA. Despite the lineups not being healthy, despite Cade not being there, we still stink. And they need talent. So I can't blame him for thinking that way. But again, I think what's on my mind, and for all the people that I wouldn't say are settling for fit, but prefer guys that fit the roster better, they just want to build around Cade and Ivy. You see a pathway to do that. But again, with Troy's perspective, maybe drafting the best player overall is also building with Ivy and Cade. So, and I cannot wait for tomorrow. I know we're going to have a lot of speculation. Everyone talks about 5 different players. I just want to get to the damn draft. Because once we get to the draft, we can see who they draft, and then we can break down why they took them and who the player is. But until then, it's all speculation. It's all speculation.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, fellas, I'll say this. If he's saying he wants a home run and doesn't want to bunt, that means he's not taking a player at number 5. It means he's got his mind, at least he's got his mind on doing something else. He's got his mind on bringing a veteran player in here. And here's a debate you guys are going to have pretty soon. Who would you rather have on this team, Zion Williamson or John Morant? Both of them could be available.
Oh, goodness.
If Troy Weaver wants to hit a home run, then he's going to try to bring one of those two in here.
Goodness.
Well, to Terry's point, one of those guys, if you go BPA, isn't it John Morant? But then fit would be Zion Williamson, but he's also not as healthy as John Morant. I don't know. That's a tough one. Speaking of baggage, they both got baggage. Zion has more legal baggage. I think John Morant is the one that you're probably more concerned about. But Zion Williamson, that's a tough one. I was all for Zion. It just depends on what the trade's for, Terry. If I'm trading a bag of chips for him, I'm cool with it. But if I got to give up Ivy and Cade, one of those two players,
gets a little too steep, man.
Now I'm hesitant. And he's making $40 million. If you can afford to pay OnlyFans models $25,000 a month to have sex with you and to be your side chick, he's got a lot of money. And he's making a lot of money. And I don't know if the Pistons, you'd be willing to take a risk for a player like that making that much money. That's the other problem.
Again, how do we get $25,000 a month on Woodward Pistons? Like, how do we make this happen? We have to figure this out.
OnlyFans.
Only
have to be.
You're gonna have to get busy with Zion. Sounds like it. Which one do you two want to volunteer?
I heard Brandon would like to fall on that sword. If you want to, Brandon, feel free.
No, I pass, bro. I pass. Oh,
Yeah,
goodness. Bro, hey, shout out to Mr. Ray. I see a lot of our regulars in the comments, man. Shout out to Mr. Jones. I see you, bro. Gus Weaver. Shout out to Gus Weaver.
Mr. Ray, too, man. Mr. Ray's in the chat. Shout out to him.
Yes, sir, Mr. Ray. Hey, but look, this draft, man, when I'm hearing about this whole aspect of home run, and then you hear Troy Weaver talk about the fact that, they vetted everything. They are prepared for everything. They're willing to trade, to get where they believe they need to get for winning. But one of the more important things I think he stated was that they believe in their team that they do have. Despite the fact that the wins weren't there and they do need to get better, he stated that they kind of like their lot in life. When you talk about building around Cade, Ivy, and then they mentioned Duran, and they still have some key pieces here. If Bojan Bogdanovic makes it, and I want to be able to talk about him. Mike Curtis said some interesting things. I'll tell you what he said. His top 3 expendable players are heading into the draft, man, and it's interesting. But yeah, actually, you know what? I kind of want to go there right now, bro.
Let's do it.
I do. When you talk about these expendable players, who do you think Mike Curtis mentioned, man? Shout out Mike Curtis of the Detroit News, their Detroit Pistons beat writer.
Well, Terry, I'll give you the hard job. I'll go with the easy one. It's got to be Marvin Bagley. Expendable players, like, come on, that's a layup.
That was the one we both were like, yeah.
Solid. Okay, Marvin Bagley, and then there's more.
Yes.
All right, Terry.
Bogdanovic. I don't know if expendable is the right word for it, but it's the player other teams want.
Yeah.
So if you can improve your roster, then I guess we'll have to say he's expendable.
That's a great nuance. I think that's a much better way to put it. Players that can find themselves traded. But Bojan, I think the way you put that, Terry, is probably the more eloquent and perfect way to kind of put that. I don't think that they're looking to move on from Bojan, though with Bagley, just with the contract and such, the fit, having Wiseman, it makes sense to kind of say we're probably better if we do move on. But do you know who number 3 was?
Killian Hayes?
No, actually.
No Killian Hayes.
No.
Damn.
Jerry, was that your answer too? I
was hoping that was what you said.
That's all I had. I mean, hell, who? I mean,
was it James Wiseman?
Yeah.
No.
James, Hamidou Diallo?
No.
Expendable?
Or Stew.
There you go.
He expendable.
I think,
as in for,
you know what? I see somebody put it in the comments. Listen, I think Stu fits underneath, and Mike, he clarified his comments that Stu fits underneath this guise of what Bojan would. If you trade him, it's got to be for something that is moving your team forward. Right. But he could see him realistically in a trade based on the contract situation, based on what he might want in free agency. We might find ourselves in another type of a Sadiq Bey situation. And Stewart is a guy, I think, when you're looking at players that other teams would want, I think you got Bojan. That would be open for trade on the Pistons roster. You got Bojan and you got Stu. Is there anyone else realistically?
One thing, let me say, everybody doesn't like beef stew for whatever. I got into a conversation with a big time Piston fan this weekend. He called beef stew Jason Maxiell.
Oh no!
I'm like, no, bro. He's got more skill than Jason.
Way more.
He was just your energy guy, and he was cute and everything. But yeah, there's a big difference.
Yeah, and if I guess you're talking about expendable. When I first heard that, my mind went to players that their futures aren't safe on the Pistons, but expendable meaning their value. Yeah, I think that makes sense
in terms of the fit, the roster, the contract. When we're looking at all of the different basketball factors that even went into the Sadiq Bey trade, it's not like they were running at or chomping at the bits to trade Sadiq, and Mike stated it as well, and that's why I'm glad Terry brought up that nuance with Bojan. These are players, when you're talking about which ones do other teams want, it's Bojan and Stu. I don't see, obviously we're not trading Cade, Ivy, Duran. That's not happening. Other than that, it gets a little bit dicey when you talk about our assets.
Maybe the proper term is valued players, who if you missing them won't kill your team. Like Cade Cunningham is valued, but if you trade him away, that kills your team.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is Marvin Bagley won't kill our team?
No.
Okay.
No, he's the one.
Better.
The expendability, he's expendable in terms of our valued picks, our valued trades. That's Bojan. That is Stewart. And it was interesting. He stated he doesn't want to see that happen. He's hoping, and as I think all of us are, that he can at least find a 6-man heart of this team role. I like Stu on this squad. I think that he's a guy that you want to kind of keep here. Terry's talked about him as well in terms of the guys that have that voice. The guys that, when you talk about this locker room and you're talking about your culture, you need that guy who can go in there and tell the guys, you're not working hard enough. And all the other players on the squad will respect that. Yeah. That guy who, when the players might tune out the coach's voice, you can't tune out your brother's voice. And I feel like Stu carries that. And then his play backs that up. It's not just enough that he talks. It's not just enough that he has his IQ, because then just go beat you down as Haslam, right? It's enough that he also can get out there and be probably one of your better defenders, one of your most versatile defenders, as long as he's utilized correctly, because it would be just a Pistons thing to see an Isaiah Stewart go to a Boston Celtics and they utilize him properly, because they've been doing that with those players for years. You don't think that they're sitting there like, we'd rather have Stu than Grant Williams right now? That's just me. I feel like they would rather have an Isaiah Stewart than Grant Williams, and those reports kind of came out. They kicked that rumor around. They don't have anything worth offering the Pistons.
Is that a real concern, Terry? Because I feel like, and I've said this before, the Pistons, if you talk about franchises that are impatient with certain players, and you see this often where players leave the Pistons, and now you got 4 players on the Nuggets who now have rings that were Pistons. Like players that are here, like I would argue Isaiah Stewart's one of them, or Killian Hayes. I don't know if Killian Hayes is, he's not in that caliber, but still players that fans are already out on, or some fans are out on. But if another organization got their hands on these players, they love them. But Detroit, they aren't the same players.
No, but it's also great to play with Joker and Murray. I mean, there's some talent over there, so you can fit in pieces. These pieces here with the Pistons were cute, but they really didn't. There's in the stage here, there's so much youth that no matter, even if you could be a role player, a valuable role player with another team, you can't be that here, because you still learning the game. You're learning your place in the NBA. They go over there and they don't have that pressure of having to learn. They're just going along for the ride. They're contributing however they can. And so this doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, I think Chuck nailed it. He said, our starters make nice role players on other teams. It's about fit. Yeah, guys that we view as starters, to Terry's point, I mean, they go to other teams. You play with Jokic, you play with Jamal, you look a lot better. And that's why I think Isaiah Stewart, as Jaden Ivey and Cade kind of blossom into their own, Isaiah Stewart's somebody you want in the playoffs. Like, I don't know how else to describe that. And I've had conversations with my good friend Michael Gentry about it, because he's, a little on the other side of it. He doesn't an Isaiah Stewart hater. We had this conversation yesterday.
Yeah, about it.
People, and it's not just Mike though. Other people bring up, they're nice players, or as Terry would say, they're cute, right? Isaiah Stewart, they're cute player, cutie pie, but he won't be on this team when they're in the playoffs. But then Terry, why do play?
He could.
Yeah, but I could say, if a playoff team wants Isaiah Stewart, he's a guy you want in the playoffs. Maybe just not as, like you said, one of your best options, but still as a role player.
Yeah. And the thing is, if let's say they trade Beef Stew, let's say to the Boston Celtics, there's no pressure on him. He's not going to be the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guy. He's just, they say, hey, here's what we want you to do. And you might see an entirely different player somewhere else, but it's going to be, he's going to do what he can do in the confines of helping that team win championships. Guys here are not doing things to win championships now. They're just playing ball.
Yeah. Yep.
That's a fact.
So he could go somewhere else and you're like, damn, I didn't know he played like this.
Yeah, it's yesterday's price isn't today's price. So his price in Detroit might not be the price somewhere else, but still give him time. Like, I'm cool on Isaiah Stewart, and especially with this draft tomorrow. It's like people when they call Jarris Walker Beef Stew 2.0. It's like, dude, what are we doing?
They play differently. Like I continue to tell people, Stu is more of a 4-5 who can, he can find himself on the perimeter, both offensively and defensively. But Jarris Walker is more of a 3-4 player who's more comfortable, more natural on the perimeter.
Super underrated playmaker too. That's part of his game I love too. Offensively,
has a little bit more handle as well.
Yeah, and defensively,
able to show, and defensively, yeah. When we look at his workout tapes, it looks natural. It doesn't look like he's adding things to his game. It looks like he's doing the things that are natural to him, and he's getting better at that. A lot of people had some concerns about his finishing in the paint, and that's probably where my concerns would lie with Jarris Walker. As we kind of shift this thing back into like the draft of it all, I know where you land. Taylor Hendricks is the guy for you. Is that if the Pistons are at 5, do you think they just take him there, or if there's a potential for him to be available later in the draft, like 7, 8, 9, and there's a deal to swing, are you in that camp?
So I'll clarify just my take on having the 5th pick, and I want to get Terry's thoughts on it too, and my philosophy, because the BPA versus fit argument. I understand that if you're swinging for the fences, and we've seen the Pistons, do that, but now with Troy Weaver, it's obviously heightened, and you're sitting at 5, and the prospects that are all available, if it's going to be Ausar Thompson, whoever it is, if you're swinging for the most potential, maybe it's Ausar Thompson. But again, if we're talking fit, but not just fit sounds like you're settling for a player. You have to understand that these guys, especially Taylor Hendricks, is 19 years old. He's a freshman. So to think that this kid cannot ever become much better than he is in a more polished product, to me is ridiculous. So I get the BPA versus fit argument. I've stuck on Hendricks because I think the biggest need for the Pistons, and you could talk about multiple needs, length, size mixed with length, because again, 6'9" with over a 7-foot wingspan, but shooting is so important. And a guy that would fit seamlessly, not only next to Caden Ivey, but seamlessly next to Jalen Duren in your front court. So think about the weak side help from Taylor Hendricks protecting the rim when you have Jalen Duren. Like, I just think it would be the best fit, but also there's a lot of upside with Taylor Hendricks. If you could develop a handle or get more consistent handle, there's a lot there with Taylor. So I like it. His shot making ability, can make tough shots, very efficient off catch and shoot threes. There's a lot to like about Taylor. But again, if you're going to tell me, well, Jeff, I want to swing for the fences and I want to take an Ausar Thompson, if he's there, then cool. But I prefer Taylor over Jarris. I prefer Taylor over Cam Whitmore. Even though those guys are interesting, and athletically, Cam Whitmore is ridiculous. So I understand that. But still, Taylor Hendricks could be the Jeremy Grant. I don't want to say he'd be Jeremy, but he could be that replacement of what you lost defensively that we always talk about. So I like Taylor Hendricks a lot. I do. But again, if they take Cam Whitmore, if they take Ausar Thompson, I'm not going to be livid. But again, it's in the whole part too. And this is what I want Terry's thought on. They tell me, Terry, well, Taylor Hendricks at 5 is too high, but why don't you trade to 7 and take him? It's like, and this is my philosophy. This is across all sports. If you like your guy, you take him. You don't lose control of the board. That is something I don't want Troy Weaver to do. Now, if you can guarantee me,
their guy,
yes,
not just
if it's their guy,
but if it's their guy,
absolutely. Yeah. If Taylor's their guy, don't lose control of the board. That's one of the biggest things for Brad, for Steve Yzerman, hell, for now Scott Harris. If you like Gibbs, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You take your guy where you take him, and you figure it out later. If you let the board play out and you lose Taylor Hendricks and you got to settle for another prospect, that's, to me, not a situation you want to be in. So I'm all for taking him at 5, even if people say it's too high. I get it. Projected wise, all the mock drafts you read, I understand it. But if you like your guy, you take him. Terry, what are your thoughts on that? Or am I crazy?
I think it's foolish to listen to the public and say, well, I can't take him because he's too high. Now, what happens? You know who's taken too high? Mo Sider of the Detroit Red Wings was taken too high. Rookie of the year. A phenomenal defenseman. He was taken too high. The Lions, first 2 players taken, they were both taken too high. Now we're hearing, hey, they might be pretty good. So what you have to do is, there's one draft board that matters. It's yours. Doesn't matter what all these people on ESPN say, blah, 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 because they get it wrong. And I've heard of a lot of players. You know who's taken too high? Kevin Durant was taken too high because he couldn't pump his 180 pounds.
But he could put the ball in the basket.
He could put it in the basket. I like that.
Yeah.
Man, oh man, oh man. I want to address Chuck's comment as well. I didn't hear anything about the medical concerns, man. If anybody has a link or whatever, definitely link. I'm going to talk to some people as well. I know there's some concerns potentially about the defense. No one's really concerned about his scoring, but it's just when those guys with Cam Whitmore.
Yeah.
But when those guys can't necessarily defend, it winds up becoming a Bojan Bogdanovic situation.
Hey, if he can't defend, that's welcome to the group.
Yeah,
he's a Piston.
You fit right in.
Right.
Yeah. Grab a plate, sit down. Yeah, Cam Whitmore, to me, the one thing that I don't mind about Cam Whitmore, obviously you get the athleticism, the 3-point shot feels like you can work. I mean, there's plenty of room to grow there. The form isn't ugly or anything like that. I haven't heard about medical concerns. I don't know the specifics of that. If that's a real legit concern, then absolutely, that's something that has to be taken into account. The biggest thing, at least I'm looking for at 5 is, man, Cam Whitmore's what, 6'5.5"? 6'5.5" without shoes. I think he's like 6'6" with shoes.
Yeah,
he was 6'4".
Yeah, I was gonna say because they list him on Villanova's the roster at 6'7", and then you get to combine, he's 6'5.5", and I'm like, what happened?
Yeah, and he dropped when teams got an opportunity to really take a look at who Cam Whitmore is, and it's like if you thought you were getting a 6'6" guy with this great athleticism, and he might be coming in looking like Jaden Ivey's height and build, then it's just like, I don't know. These were some of the same arguments that we had with Scoot. You know, do we get a guy that's realistically going to come in and kind of play that similar or that same style or give us a similar measurables, even though he has some extreme athleticism? There was a time when I thought, let's definitely stock that. As we've gotten to understand a little bit more of these other prospects, there are guys who just give a little bit more.
Well, especially in the playmaking category. I mean, if you're taking a guy top 5, but he didn't even average 1 assist at Villanova this year, I don't think. Like the playmaking is a concern, the lack thereof is a concern. And maybe that's just Villanova's system, whatever. He never displayed it, at least with some of these other projects or these other players. Jarris Walker, playmaking upside offensively, handling. He has obviously experience handling the ball. He's great defensively. He's probably the most ready to go defender in the NBA draft. So I got no issue with Jarris. I got no issue with Taylor Hendricks. I got no issue with S.R. Thompson. Cam Whitmore, I'm a little skeptical about, but again, I think at the end of the day, we all can agree that whoever they take, we're 100% supportive of, unless it's somewhere out of left field and we had no idea it was even possible. But for the most part, solid group of prospects. I would just prefer the Pistons stay put at 5 and you get your choice of the litter rather than settling and losing control of the board. I don't want that to happen.
Yeah, I'm not satisfied with anybody they take. You owe this fan base something. All these guys you talk about could be a home run down the road. They need a home run now. They've sucked ever since 2016. All right. And we always, pat them on the back. Hey, they're doing a great job. They're building. The bottom of they don't win. Okay. This fan base is not impatient, but they should be. They should put pressure on this organization. That's why when Troy Weaver talks about home run, I have to believe he's not talking about drafting somebody because there's no home runs in the draft.
You just read the report. And by the way,
shout out Chuck.
By the way, Terry's point about hitting on this draft pick, I think, Terry, the most important decision for Troy besides Cade is hiring Monty, making sure you get the head coach right. The next decision is hitting on this pick. Because if you botch this pick, that's what concerns me about swinging for the fences, which I understand completely, but there is that risk factor. Because it's either swing for the fences and try and get the guy that could be the best player, and he ends up being not very good. And if that happens, man, I can't imagine the amount of people that are going to be talking about Troy Weaver's seat getting warmer and warmer. But he's right. He has to hit on this 5th pick. There's no doubt about it. And he has to, at least at the very minimum, be a solid NBA starter for the next 10 years. Like you can't be a bum. You can't be somebody that gets moved to the bench after, a full season. Like you just can't, i.e. Killian Hayes or Isaiah Stewart. Or a solid, but still, you got to hit on this pick. Terry's right.
Yep,
you got to hit on it.
And shout out to the crew. They're stating that Cam Whitmore is 6'5", 6'6".
Elton C with the $50.
Elton C.
He says, I sit out in the weeds. Loyal listener, love the show. Sub Uncle T. Elton, shout out to Elton for the $50
Shout out to Elton, man.
See, we didn't even have to get naked for Zion Williamson. We didn't have to get naked, Terry. That's good news.
That much closer to the
25,000 though, but
yeah, now I'm $24,950 short. But we're making our way there. Appreciate y'all.
Brown just declined his option. Is going to become a free agent.
He's going to get
paid. Shout
out
to Bruce Brown, man. He deserves it.
He's going to get paid.
He deserves it, man. Shout out to him. You know what? I want to make sure we're fair. They say Cam Whitmore it is a solid 6'5" without shoes. I think Asar is 6'6" without shoes. Their play styles are a little bit different, whereas Cam Whitmore to me is more guard-like. Asar is more the fit that we're looking for on
He's
that
like
wing.
a true wing off ball.
And
He
he's
played
still
off ball
growing.
too. Yes.
They're younger. They're still growing. Their bodies are still going to develop. They're going to get that man weight, as they call it. And I think that we're going to be looking at those players a little bit different. You know, I talked to some people that actually played with them. They were like, they didn't think they were going to grow to 6 or 7 inches they did between middle school and high school. They might have another growth spurt similar like Andre Drummond when he went from like 6'7" to 6'10 between his high school year and when he went to UConn. And so it's going to be interesting to see with those guys. But Mr. Ray says something interesting, and it's what Mike and I were kind of deliberating, and you guys will see that at 1 o'clock on the Woodward Pistons podcast. We went through some pretty cool scenarios, and we recapped the Troy Weaver press conference. But one of the things I kind of want the Pistons to do, and I want to get your thoughts on it as well, is make your home run pick at 5. Whether that's Asar, Hendricks, or Walker, make that pick because you know you have the assets and the capital to trade back into this first round. You got pick number 1 at the beginning of the second. We know that's as good as the first. You have some expendable or some movable, let's say some movable assets. We won't say expendable. You have some movable assets here. I'm not going to be surprised if they wind up staying put at 5 and then trading up to get back into this draft.
What does that sound like, Kobe Buffkin?
Ooh.
What does that sound like to you?
Listen, a lot of people are interested in Imani Bates too.
Well, that's a tough. You think he's a lottery pick? I mean, he'll probably fall to the 20s in my opinion.
I think that's what I'm saying. Trading back into the first round.
Oh, you're talking late 20s. I wasn't sure if you were talking about like last year where they went back into the lottery.
I don't know, bro. This is so crazy because he got back into the lottery with the 25th pick and just taking on people's junk, bro. Mm-hmm. Like I don't know. I feel like at the least he's going to get back into that Sadiq Bey, Isaiah Stewart range where he picked between 16 and 19 or the 20s. But I'm not going to be surprised if he gets back up into that lottery, man. I saw Mr. Ray talk about getting back into that lottery between that 10 and 14 pick by utilizing our 31st and maybe a player that somebody likes, maybe a Bojan to Dallas. I think that option right there is your nuclear option because then you're able to go out there and pick your home one pick as well as who's your best fit available. If they're going to do that, I think he's going to tip his hand. If they wind up going and getting Asar with that 5th pick, I believe that there's going to be trades that follow.
That's that would drafting Asar or forbid. I mean, God forbid, Amin Thompson's there. I think that's probably the straightforward definition of swing for the fences.
Bro, don't give me hope. Amin's not.
Yeah, there's no way he's got to be gone. Either hell, I would assume if he even makes it to the Rockets, he'd be gone. Rockets would take him. I would assume.
This draft is about to get
especially
crazy,
now with
bro.
The Cam Whitmore reports. If there's actual medical concerns.
Let me read that. Shout out to Chuck Brewer. I wanted to be able to read that on the stream. Motor City Hoops. Shout out Bryce Simon. He's also the Pistons Pulse with the Free Press. He says, not saying we should buy all or maybe any of it, but some more intel on Cam Whitmore, just to preface it. And Chuck got us that link that he was speaking of earlier. It says there have been some concerns over Cam Whitmore's medicals, which could cause a few teams to pass in the mid-lottery via NBA draft was. So, in Source Bleacher Report articles, that's huge. When you're talking about Cam Whitmore, everyone's been trying to figure out why the drop. People have been trying to figure out, is it the measurables? Did he just have bad workouts? Is he a bad interview? Is there something we don't know? And if it's medical, then I could understand why people might say, let's try and let another team figure that out. So I don't know. This is going to be an interesting thing because we don't know what smoke screens are out there either. That's another thing.
Well, there's a ton of smoke screens. That's why I can't wait for tomorrow, the NBA draft, and you can tune in to the live show 7:30.
7:30.
Me, you, Uncle T, tons of guests. You guys want to be there. I got to get going because I have to get back to work here, but I appreciate you guys, man. It's always fun. Brandon, Uncle T, kicking it, talking Pistons. I appreciate you, man. Seriously, appreciate all you guys for the constant support. Subscribe to the YouTube channel and like this stream if you haven't already. Uncle T,
I miss everything on there.
My guy. I'll see you tomorrow. All right. Here, you can.
I'm gonna slide over.
You want to slide over? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Next to my guy.
Yes, sir.
And over here. Bam.
Man, oh man, oh man. Look, I'm this draft is one, man, that I'm starting to really, really get excited about. Hey, shout out to Neil. He has on Neil Rule. He has on the classic Detroit Tigers fitted cap along with a Detroit Bad Boy shirt.
He's Mr. Classic.
I like it, man, because of that. Those oranges to me, they go. that orange and Detroit hat, along with that Detroit Bad Boys, he's rocking to that, man. It was always kind of on point, those classic looks and vibes. But listen, I want to kind of get your overall takeaway, on this draft, on some of the things you've heard from Troy Weaver and all that. One of the things I know he's really excited about is the impact that Monty Williams, or that he believes Monty Williams can make on the guys that are already here at getting them to the next level. What's your takeaway from Monty, as well as just, after that, kind of your overall feel of the Pistons ahead of this draft?
Well, Monty is the home run for them, because what I heard from people who before this hire, they said, "Oh, I want a big name coach." I'm not a guy that's for a big name coach. I think that's baloney. I was more interested in somebody who could develop these players and get them to play a certain way. They may have hit the home run because he's a big name and he can he can communicate with these young guys. Like I said, this generation is different. And you need someone special that can reach them, that can motivate them, can stimulate them to get them to play a certain way. I think Dwayne Casey said all the right things, and he was trying. His number one thing, if you listen to him, the number one thing he was trying to get them to do was play defense. And I understand in practice they were working on that, but guess what they did? They didn't play defense.
They didn't.
So I think some way, because maybe he was a little soft-spoken, maybe they viewed him more as grandpa. They just didn't click. So now you got a younger voice, a younger guy, younger thinking. So he'll probably do the same things that Dwayne Casey did, but it's going to click better because he can reach them better than Casey could.
Hey, shout out to Chuck, man. Shout out to Chuck Brewer. I agree with him. He said, play defense or take a seat next to the coach next year. And honestly, seeing the precipitous drop, man, they were not horrible on defense when they had Jeremy Grant here. They were a pesky team. They showed some competitive nature, especially when they got Cade that second half of the season, his rookie year. But last year, bro, was awful. It was awful. It's just seeing just kind of role players and no-name players and new players and rookies really step up against the Pistons every night and know exactly where to attack. And it was usually in the meat of the defense and in the heart of the defense where we're used to seeing the Pistons realistically kind of enforce their will, even if they're bad. Like, bro, we saw even Junkyard Dog and Mikey Moore go out there and make sure Pistons weren't getting punked on a nightly basis on the defensive end, even though they weren't winning games. We saw Stack and those guys go out there and play tough every single night. It's like that's kind of what we want. And the fair part that I have to continue to give them, at least for this past year, is they just didn't have their guys on the court enough. And health matters. Like, that's not an excuse.
That's true. But
it's not an excuse.
But young man,
let me know.
This was an organizational fail from top to bottom. Yeah. They tanked. I don't care what you say. You can defend them.
No, they tanked.
You can defend them. I know these are your boys and everything, but they tanked. Some of these players, like Donovich, others, I'm not convinced they were injured enough where they couldn't play. They could have played. I'm going to give Cade Cunningham the benefit of the doubt that he couldn't play. But
he's probably the true injury.
You had the one true injury, and that was the key one right there. But I don't think the Pistons were interested in winning last year. No. Now, here's what I think Troy Weaver is doing. You know how every year you have the trade deadline. You're going to buy or sell. Yeah. Last year, they definitely should have sold. But he didn't. You know why? Because in his mind, this team is a playoff team that he didn't allow them to be a playoff team. So he's banking on this being two seasons of buy or sell, and he's going to wait until this season coming up to see where they are before the trade deadline, before he makes any big deals, unless it's a draft day thing that he can't pass up. But I'm convinced in his mind, Pistons are a playoff team. Not in my mind.
Yeah.
But, he didn't have his team out there, and I think that was partly deliberate.
Yeah.
So he's thinking, if I got my boys out there, they're gonna show out. I got my coach now. So now we're all into winning. Last year, they weren't all into winning.
Right. And he has to believe that because they're his picks.
Mhm.
He has to, whether Monty was his guy or not, he has to believe that these guys, that these Cade Cunningham, Ivy, Duran, even guys like Killian Hayes and Isaiah Stewart and whoever else he's going to bring to this roster. James Wiseman, that's as good as another draft pick. They traded Sadiq Bey, a draft pick, for James Wiseman. They were in the same draft class. I'm hoping that Monty Williams comes here and unlocks these players. Wiseman is the one that I believe can instantly make himself a huge asset, at least by next trade deadline. You're talking about another player from that draft class that if they don't do something with, I didn't get a chance to look at his cap hold, but Killian Hayes, he's going from 5 million to 7.5 million next season. And then his cap hold in the offseason is 10 million. I don't know what Wiseman is going to be as the number 2 pick in that draft.
Right. That's still not a killer, but if you're shooting 16%
that
from
though.
Yeah, but I think the guy that that they can really turn around and reinvent is James Wiseman. When you saw bits and pieces of him, he does things out there on the court that we really haven't seen a lot of. He's got good handle. He can take the ball from outside the paint into the paint. He's got a little wiggle. He can shoot, but he wasn't called upon that to do that with Golden State. And I think here with the Pistons, he's, it takes a while to adjust to where the hell am I? Why am I in Detroit? And so now he needs a training camp here. And I think Monty can unlock the potential that at least I see in him. I think Wiseman can be a phenomenal player in this league.
I'm a little bit more bullish on Wiseman as well. I want to see if the Pistons can get to an opportunity where they can see what they have in him. And I believe that with the way his career started, he's not one of those guys that's going to be as kind of what the rumors stated that Sadiq Bey was looking for a payday. I don't think Wiseman believes he's even in a position to command that or believe that that's going to be something out there on the open market. I believe that he's still a guy who teams are going to buy high on his potential, but they're not necessarily going to pay for that.
Yeah, but let me warn you, young, but everybody wants to get paid in the league.
Yeah, they do.
Everybody wants to get paid. They're thinking about that paycheck. Now, when he turns 27 or 28 years old, he might be more inclined to be thinking championships. So will Cade, and so will Jalen Ivey when they get to that stage. But right now, hey, we're in the league. We're having a good time. The road trips are cool. There's not a lot of pressure on us to win in Detroit because people are not coming down on. Yeah, people grumble and everything, but they're not calling for people's heads. They call for Casey's head, but they're not calling for Cade's head or Jalen Ivey's head or Wiseman or anybody like that. So it's still, I'm not going to call it a honeymoon, but it's like the dogs haven't come out yet. So now you enjoy NBA life. But I think maybe a guy like Monty Williams, there's 2 ways he can take it. He can come in and just be a dog and say, look, y'all, this is unacceptable. Or he could say, I'm getting paid, so I'm good. Let's hope it's the first one. He puts pressure on these guys to be better. I think that's the way it will be, because prior to him coming in, the only face of the franchise really was Cade Cunningham. Now Monty Williams, it's on you too, bro. If they fail, there's going to be a lot of spotlight on you because of the contract. So maybe we see pressure put on the Pistons by the public this year. Maybe.
Yeah, I think that this is the year that it will happen. I've been saying it since last summer. Shout out to Lucas, man. But I've been saying it since last summer that this is the most pivotal all season in this restore and in the Pistons history, in my opinion, since they freed up the cap space when they traded Chauncey. I still think that was a bad trade, and even more so compounded with how they spent the money. But in terms of having the cap space, having your foundation, having some assets, having a top 5 pick in this NBA draft, and knowing where you've come from, you're 4th Troy Weaver. You got to get something right this year.
Right. Do you know why Joe traded for Allen Iverson?
Why? Let me know, man. I want to hear.
He traded for him because people weren't even talking about the Pistons. Punch. They were so far down the radar. The Pistons could do everything and nobody cared. So Joe at least wanted to bring in somebody that fans would care about, either good or bad. So he brought in Iverson. And now he took out what was in the heart and soul of the Pistons, Chauncey Billups. That really screwed the organization up. And then we can debate what was worse, the Iverson trade or drafting Darko. I'm going to still say drafting Darko because
that was a tough
somebody within the organization got to Joe and said, we got to draft Darko. I don't think Joe's heart was in it. I think bottom line, he knew other players were better. Somebody got paid off to bring Darko Milicic to the Pistons.
Bruh, man, listen, that was something we were talking about too, because it was all about, I remember that time frame, and I know you would know more, this intel that he received, that all of a sudden Darko was this guy, because there were like promises. I remember LeBron and Carmelo being on TV kind of joking about it and talking about it, and then out of the clear blue, it was just these reports that Darko was the guy that had to be picked. This was something that somebody and other people were just missing. And it was just like, goodness gracious, man. Just the way that kind of played itself out. Wow. I for the basketball of it all, I understand. We can look back in hindsight and say, yeah, you pulled the plug way too early and Chauncey was your guy. But Darko was just the wrong pick. You can't, there's no way to even fathom that. You can't flip that. It's not like you can say you got cap space for it. You can't say you got to, at least with the Chauncey one, you got a shot at what? See what Allen Iverson was, and then you get the cap space, and then you got to spend it right, but he just didn't. Mm-hmm. He just didn't. So
they brought in a guy, Ben Gordon, who didn't feel comfortable being a starter. He didn't feel comfortable being, I'm not saying he was the man then, but he was like put in a more prominent role. And then Charlie Villanueva was just, he's just one of those dudes just happy to be in the league. I don't care about winning. I don't care about busting your ass. I'm just here, to do what you tell me to do. One time I did this as an aside. The Pistons were playing a game at the Palace, and I counted how often Charlie V had the ball and for how long. During this one stretch, he had the ball for 18 times for 21 seconds. So all he was doing is taking the ball and jacking it up.
18 times.
I mean, he barely had the ball and he was just letting it go. Boom.
Charlie V, man, that was, oh my goodness. People and the fans are a little bit mad of us. They're like, man, why would you guys remind us of this? Listen, we're just trying to give you guys.
Yeah, we went down the wrong road. We apologize.
We got lost somewhere, man. We got lost there. But look, it's almost about that time to wrap it up. The next Whitmore Sports show is starting right now. But we are going to be with you guys in a little bit here. What happens? Did the trade drop? The stream? Let me see what's going on. But look, we are going to be with you guys a little bit later. I'm going to be getting on with Steve around 4. And Steve also has his draft show that I'm going to see if we're looking at dropping that before the draft tomorrow as well. I got to see exactly. He just texted me here. But I definitely appreciate you all for rocking with us. Definitely be on the lookout at 1 o'clock for the Whitmore Pistons podcast. Mike Curtis of the Detroit News, their Detroit Pistons beat writer, joined me and had a lot of good things to say. His perspective as well, he shared. And just from being in a room with Troy Weaver, it was a pretty good, interesting presser, man, where he dropped a lot of breadcrumbs. I think it's going to get crazy. I really do. I think after the first pick is going to be
say no to 5.
Say no to 5. You think
no to 5.
Trade that boy. Hey, man, let me know what you guys think we should do. If we should trade the pick or if we should keep the pick. Who do you want at 5 if we do? And if we trade it, let me know the scenario, man. We can't just be like, oh, just trade it. Put it in the comments and definitely leave a like on your way out. But I appreciate you guys. And look, I'm going to get this drum roll going for the other legend over here, Terry Foster Supreme. We got to get you in this. We got to get you in this Hall of Fame, don't we? We got to get you in this Michigan Sports Hall of Fame, man.
Didn't happen this year. Maybe next year.
We're gonna make it happen. We definitely gonna make it happen. And shout out to Jeff as well. Shout out to Jeff for joining us in the first half of the platform,
young man.
Definitely. Hey, I like him, man. I think he has a future in this media industry.
Juicy, he does.
Juicy and Kool-Aid, man.
Juicy could be on TV.
He should be. Like one of those soap operas, man. You know what I mean?
Oh, he could.
With the dreamy hair and all that. They should put that filter on him. Shout out, Jeff.
You get that look like your woman left you. You go, ooh.
Hey, listen, this is a tradition that will live on, man. Shout out to Hollywood, Jeff. Let me get this drum roll for you before we close up. Definitely. Hey, yo, shout out to the legend, Terry Foster, man. Definitely follow him at Terry Foster DET on Twitter and on the socials, man. Follow Jeff Ifredi at Jeff Ifredi. I need you guys tapped in tomorrow night at 7:30 p.m. We're going live on the Whitmore Sports channel to cover this draft. Hopefully we get some shocks, some surprises. We got a lot of different guests that are going to be tapping in with us. So definitely, man, love you guys. God bless. Hope everybody out there is having a great, great, great day. So till next time, you all.